Thank you very much, Dr. Raana. You have now become a model for the rest of our panelists because you kept in time, spoke very eloquently, and I really appreciate your presentation. Thank you. Just to note, I think it's one of the, you mentioned some statistics at the beginning of your discussion. I think one of the things that happens when we talk about social issues and economic issues, all of those underlying causes of hunger and malnutrition, it becomes very hard. It becomes, when we talk about the comprehensive approach, there are a lot of different factors that need to contribute to it. I think Brazil is an absolutely fantastic example that it is actually feasible, that you can achieve with all of those considerations in mind, that you can achieve impact at scale. And I think that's absolutely a lesson for all of us, and really appreciate your remarks. Thank you. I see Peru in the corner as well, and I know they're doing a lot of similar work, which is great. Hello. Okay, let's move on to our next panelist. Lisa Dreyer is the Director for Food Security and Development Initiatives at the World Economic Forum. Thanks, Lisa.
Great. Thank you, Laura. I think this morning on this panel you're going to hear some fantastic examples of large-scale social programs such as Zero Hunger, and the government of India's efforts, which have been extremely successful. And I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach in talking about the role of the private sector as a social lever. The private sector could actually fit in any of the levers we're discussing in parallel this morning: economic, inclusive growth, or science and technology. But we are, in my organization, we're particularly interested in the potential of the private sector to contribute to empowerment of the community and also building resilience of the community. So I'll talk a little bit about that. There's three main points that I'm hoping you'll take away from my presentation. One is that business has tremendous and mostly untapped potential to contribute to improving food security, agriculture, nutrition, and also health. A lot of great efforts are underway, but there's a lot more that business can contribute. So the potential is the first main point. The second is the impact that the private sector can bring on these issues, because it is a sector which is innovative, works very efficiently at large scale, can move quickly. So these are all skills and capacities that can be valuable contributions when undertaken in partnership with other organizations. So my second point is the impact. The third is collaboration. The thing that I hear in my organization, where we work with a lot of different business leaders in many different industries, is we can't do this alone. So business is certainly not trying to come in and take over. It's not trying to do things on its own, but in fact is attempting in different ways to come to the table, offer some skills and capacities, and say these can really only be useful and only be implemented if we work in partnership with civil society, communities, governments, and other organizations. So just briefly, I have why, what, and how. Why are we thinking of business as something that can contribute to the social levers? And I already touched briefly on the concept that by empowering the community, business can improve incomes, improve access to food and nutrition and essential products. So the kinds of base of the pyramid business models and innovative business models that provide opportunities to the poor can be a tool for empowerment. And then by providing those tool to achieve increased incomes, stronger livelihoods, and better diets, these types of private sector tools can also strengthen the resilience of communities in facing some of the challenges on these issues. What can business contribute in particular? I mentioned some of the skills and assets that the private sector can bring to the table and the impact those can bring. And what we have seen in our work with companies at the World Economic Forum is two different ways in which the private sector can contribute to agriculture, nutrition, and health. One is through providing very specific solutions, whether that might be a product or a new technology such as a fortified food, or a business model such as sourcing from smallholder farmers that provides incomes or livelihoods. So that would be a very specific solution at one point along the value chain or addressing one piece of the puzzle. But another way in which the private sector can be involved is to help strengthen the whole puzzle and be involved in a collaborative multi-stakeholder effort to improve the whole system. And we have actually started focusing our efforts on that end of things, seeing as many people in this conference are saying that we really need to take a holistic and systemic approach to addressing these issues together. So the specific solutions and the systemic approach are the two answers to the what. The how, I think, is really the thorny question, and that's where a lot of the most wonderful opportunities and the greatest challenges come forward as we think about stakeholders working together, but in particular trying to bring in the private sector as a much more active partner in empowering the community. What we have found is that through engaging the private sector either in one-on-one partnerships or in collaborative efforts around a specific value chain or intensively improving the productivity or nutritional status of a certain community or a certain region, the businesses can work collaboratively with other stakeholders to identify what the needs are, see how they can combine their capacities and investments with those of others, and then jointly work together to develop and scale up solutions. So all of these different approaches are briefly summarized in what we're calling a roadmap for stakeholders, which is there on the table for those that would like to take it. This is a strategy that we just launched 2 weeks ago in Davos at our annual meeting of world leaders, where we had farmer leaders sitting down next to global CEOs and heads of state to work collaboratively and informally to define how they can work together and combine their capacities in a more powerful way. So that was a very exciting milestone for us. This strategy outlines this overall approach of encouraging collaboration to really leverage the capacities of the private sector. My last comment is just as a comment on the challenge that I think we have all started to perceive as we've gone through these 2 days of fascinating discussions here, which is that while we all see the tremendous opportunity to take a more integrated approach to agriculture, nutrition, and health, the question of how to actually achieve that and operationalize that, I think, will be the toughest one. And I had a couple of thoughts on that. I think it seems like the first step, which we are all really making some progress on in this conference, is to change mindsets so that everyone can develop a shared mindset of this expanded value chain, where someone involved in agriculture will think not, my goal is to deliver this product to the miller, but they'll think my goal is to deliver sustenance that will create a healthy person. So they're thinking all the way to the end of the chain to a new end goal, which is a healthy person. And the people that are concerned with health will think all the way to the beginning of the chain, in considering the health of this person, I need to think right from the beginning, what is the food that they're consuming? So that shared vision and expanded mindset is the first step that I think we're now on that journey. Then I think we need to create a sense of shared responsibility to achieve that end goal together. And once we have that, then we'll have the commitment to undertake the improved coordination between sectors and across stakeholder groups that will be needed to achieve that. So that involves the private sector as well as the community and all other stakeholders that need to address this. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Lisa. That was really helpful, and I think in particular it's a fantastic evolution of where we've been as a nutrition field. I think we see a huge opening now for the private sector to engage, as you've outlined, and I know there was a lot of excitement at Davos recently around the issue of development and food security and how to effectively engage the private sector. So I think you're mapping out of first changing mindsets and then, sharing responsibility and really making clear that it's mutual accountability of all partners in this effort. That's really critical. So thank you. Next we have Charlotte Dufour, who unfortunately has lost her voice. So we'll give, do you have a bottle of water over there? Okay. She is a Food Security, Nutrition, and Livelihoods Officer in the Nutrition and Consumer Protection Division at the Food and Agriculture Organization in Italy at the UN. And so we'll bear with you if you need to take a break on your voice. Thanks, Charlotte.
Thank you very much, and bear with my croaky voice for 10 minutes. Thank you. Thank you very much, Lisa, because I think the conclusion of your presentation is a very good lead into some of the questions I'd like to raise with you. And I'm very thankful to IFPRI to have chosen this topic of social levers, because I actually think that's probably one of the main solutions we have to dealing with that challenge. Food is at the heart of our societies. It's at the heart of culture. Every one of us eats. Every one of us has a favorite recipe. Every one of us has fed a child. So I think working with people is the way forward, and nutrition is actually a very good entry point for dealing with multisectoriality. I'm going to do something different from Adriana. I'm going to take us to a very small scale and see how working with social levers at the community level can actually be good entry points also for helping us address multisectoriality at the more national level. I'll start by drawing from my experience of working in Afghanistan on an FAO project funded by Germany, implemented with the Ministry of Agriculture in close collaboration with Health. And I'm very honored to have here Dr. Zarmina and Dr. Ahmadjan from Ministry of Health, and my colleague Sylvia Kaufmann, who's brilliantly taken on the work after I left. The program was designed to mainstream nutrition in agriculture and food security policies and programs using a multi-sectoral approach. At the heart of the program was this design, basically working with all sectors and at all levels, from the center, being actively engaged in advocacy and policy-making processes, at the provincial level, engaging with government departments on integrating nutrition in their activities, whether they be health, agriculture, rural development, education, and at the community level, we were providing technical support to NGOs and other government or non-governmental actors working directly with communities and families. We were therefore also feeding back the local knowledge and experiences and needs we saw in the field on a very regular basis to the policy-making processes. How did it work practically? We started with joint planning exercises at central and decentralized levels, using malnutrition problem trees and solution trees. And even if you're not a nutritionist, if there's one tool I recommend for getting people together on any topic, is putting a problem tree together with nutrition at the center. And then when you start doing the solution tree, you don't need to tell anybody about multisectoriality. Their job is in that tree. And they're demonstrating to each other that, one, they can't do the job alone, and two, if they don't work together, it's not going to work. And using that joint analysis and that joint understanding of the situation, we started identifying gaps. What can we do to enhance the impact of what we're already doing on nutrition? And the answer was integrating a variety of nutrition-related interventions in ongoing programs. So we introduced first very basic nutrition education, using as many channels as we could. We were cheap. We said, where can we be opportunistic? Where could we get the maximum bang for our buck? So we just started saying, literacy circles. There are thousands of them. And if we take a literacy teacher to integrate a few basic messages on nutrition in her work, it gets out there. Schools, fantastic. School gardens. We started with 7 in 2007. There were 350 or more, even 400 now, 4 years, some of them self-replicating. Working with introducing nutrition education in poultry groups, agricultural cooperatives, women's groups, teaching community health workers. So the families are hearing the same message from everybody. We then built on that with improved complementary feeding recipes and home-based food processing. What was very interesting to see was the synergies that started developing quite spontaneously. I remember sitting in a literacy circle. We were monitoring the nutrition education they received and asking the women, so what did you learn? They said, well, we need to eat more diverse foods. And I said, well, do you do it? Expecting a very dubious yes that, any evaluator would expect from a friendly respondent. But I heard this woman at the back of the room say in Dari, in a tone that was not to be heard, yeah, now we do. That struck me. So I said, now what? I said, well, I have my kid. He's in the school. They have a garden there. So he brought back some seeds at home. And now we've started planting vegetables in our house. And now we're eating that in our food. But the seed quality here is crap. We really can't get good quality seeds, which then prompted me to go speak to our seed colleagues and, guys, can you please get the seeds sorted out here? Similarly, school gardens. we used them as a mechanism not only to get nutrition education out to kids, but to strengthen collaboration between the different institutions. We organized a competition for the best school garden in the province. It composed a jury of representative of agriculture, education, health, rural development. They went out to all the schools together with the same criteria. So one, they got to know each other. Two, all of them started to think, hey, nutrition is my job, and it's actually not that complicated, and the kids love it, the teachers love it, the parents love it. So using something very concrete, you make that multi-sectoriality and that joint action real. And I'd just like to conclude the Afghan example by saying that when we started 6 years ago, our counterparts in the Ministry of Agriculture were not coming to the office. They had no office to come to. They had no terms of reference. They didn't know what to do. And nobody of the senior management of the ministry knew what nutrition was about. And just last week, the Minister of Agriculture went to Parliament asking for $2 million of government money to continue this work. And I think this is a sign that when you start small and modest, you can actually go big. I'd like to also turn to Africa to show there are many different ways of doing this. We now have a brilliant opportunity, at least from the United Nations perspective, to make these linkages work through the UN joint programming, and Spain has led the way in helping us work more together through the MDG Fund. I'd invite any donors to please be inspired by the Spanish example, because it's really helping us to do better work. And they've basically taken, it's a joint program with 3 outcomes. One is on management of acute malnutrition and improving feeding practices. Another one is on food security, especially working at post-harvest management and storage. Traditionally, these things are done quite separately, and sure, we can link them, but it's quite a confusing mess. So what they're trying to do, and I've taken these slides, by the way, these are not mine, these are from the coordinator of this program, brilliant man. And so he's saying, let's see how we can harmonize what we're doing. And the key to that has been setting up appropriate coordination structures at decentralized levels and working with the synergies. So at the regional level, they have a regional coordination committee chaired by the governor with representatives from their government department directors, UN and NGO staff. And their role is planning, supervision, monitoring. And then at the district level, I love the title, Synergy Support Team. And that's the head doctor, technical staff from agriculture and education and so on, from NGOs and government staff. And they do joint missions together. They work together. And the gem of it, that's where I really love it, is their concept of the nutrition kernel. That's at the village level. The head of the feeding center, the head of the agricultural cooperative, the head of the village storage. And the coordinator whose vision this is, Ahmed Uldaida, tells me, they know each other. I want them to go take tea in the evening and say, hey, by the way, this kid's in my feeding center. Do you know if his father is a member of your agricultural cooperative? Does he get access to credit? So together they're trying to get the joint targeting to work and support each other. Over tea in the evening, gosh, nutrition's hard, but no, we'll do it. We'll manage. We're not alone. So I'd like to conclude by saying that the strength of working with different community institutions is that synergies start to emerge spontaneously. There's a tremendous power in getting nutrition knowledge out there. It's incredible what people will do with it. That requires, however, to have a common language. We all use jargon. Let's simplify it, and let people use their own words. It also requires investing in skills development, and that is an issue that is not sufficiently addressed in a lot of the scaling up. Invest in skills development, and not just basic nutrition, but also joint planning, communication, and facilitation. Get these skills out there, and people will be empowered to make the changes they can make with the resources they have to improve their nutrition. So I'd also like to emphasize that when you associate this kind of community level work and working with social levers with capacity development of government institutions, the social levers can become political levers. You can mainstream this in your government system, and that's very strong for sustainability and building ownership across the government at the central and decentralized level. It basically demystifies nutrition. So working through different community institutions makes sense technically. A malnourished child needs support from different sources, and socially. It can generate a supportive environment that empowers communities and households to better address malnutrition with the resources they have. Again, the power of nutrition is that everybody can feel personally concerned because everybody eats and everybody is concerned about their health. So nutrition can be a lever for joint social action and for promoting resilient local food systems. It's not just leveraging agriculture for nutrition and health. It's nutrition and health leveraging agriculture and much more. Thank you.